Hello and welcome to the World of Data 201. This is Larry Boyhumer from Novatech. This is part of a four-part series, the second part actually, which we're going to be helping you learn a little bit more about the world of data and machine-to-machine. In the first part, 101, we focused on three different types of cellular hardware that are commonly used to provide connectivity for machine-to-machine or IoT solutions. In this webinar, we're going to focus on a couple of common IoT solutions that are sold to businesses every day of all sizes and in every vertical market. One important thing to realize about any kind of solution, whether it be one involving a handheld or one involving IoT, is that there really are, in our minds, only four different gains that you can get from a wireless solution. Any of these gains will definitely help a business, and the goal is to definitely make sure that the deployment does one of these four things. The first thing is to increase productivity, and this could be simply allowing your valuable people in the field to do more with less. And that can be by removing some non-core or clerical functions from their roles, but also by giving them the ability to make better decisions by having better information. The second one is, for many customers, the idea of having a down connection is not only impractical, but it's actually inconceivable. And this is why cellular is used to provide a redundancy or backup connection for a main important landline. In terms of your assets, we're referring here to both people and your things and items out in the field. These things can basically make up the core of your business. By keeping track of your items out in the field, you're going to reduce theft and maximize their value. And by having better knowledge of where your people are, you'll both be able to use them more efficiently, but also keep them safe. And the last part about cost, isn't it really all about cost? Machine-to-machine solutions are used in many ways to reduce both the capital expenditures up front as well as the operating expenditures of a business. Once you have something out in the field, it's important to know that you have to look after certain aspects of it in order to make the deployment smoother. And that involves looking after what we call the four platforms of wireless. If your solution involves a cellular connection, you do have to look after the SIM or the cellular activation. And this involves things like monitoring to make sure the right rate plan is on the device, but also to make sure the device is even on and active on the network. Once it's out in the field, the device has to be managed. And this can involve things like pushing out the latest firmware of the device, making sure it connects to key systems, and even making sure it hasn't been vandalized out in the field. Once you have the device in the field, it's all about the data. And this is the important part of any platform, is bringing back vital data to the people that need it. And this means things like making sure that alarms are presented to people as alarms or as something that has to take action, and then taking the less important data and logging it for future analysis or trend setting. The last thing is, if someone can't act upon the data, the overall solution doesn't bring an awful lot of value. So managing the experience, allowing people to actually do items and make decisions based on the data, whether that be by giving them a graph or control over a device, this is what makes the overall solution much more valuable. In this solution here, we're talking about something very general, so I wanted to keep it as light as possible. So I'll just move my pointer around here. What we're talking about is a smart business. In this case, they happen to monitor a washing machine as well as a smart TV, and then they have a router for providing access. What we're doing here is showing how you can bring information from the location. So in this case, we're bringing information from these two devices, bringing it across the cellular network to a cloud-based platform. Once it's in the cloud, then decisions can be made and the information can be dispersed accordingly. So in the purpose of the example of the washing machine, if something fails, the information can be sent over to customer service to let them know that it's down. It can be dispatched over to the mechanics or the repair technicians who will actually go out there and make the repair. It could also be dispatched out to the finance team to let them know about the different billing hours. So the idea is that by providing information from one end to the other, you can provide a nice turnkey experience for the customers. So the first of the two main, very general and very broad areas I'm going to talk about is what I refer to as advanced monitoring. The idea here is that we're using IoT technology to get information from remote devices, like in the example of the washing machine. This can involve things like usage data, so if perhaps a device is being used less or more than you expected. It could be alarms such as devices and crisis mode or been vandalized. And it can also allow that information to be put into key systems like your customer service or your billing systems. While it appeals to just about every business if you were to present it to them, it really stands out for companies that have assets that are located away from their core people. Perhaps they're located in remote areas or they're located at a third-party location. The benefits to these solutions that it allows your products to be available on much more. It also tends to reduce repairs and outages. It can also allow you to better bill your solution because perhaps you have a better understanding on how it's actually used. And it can definitely provide better information for your engineers to be able to make decisions. And that's what our next slide is going to talk about. So this is an example that could be used across many different industries, but I chose John Deere because it kind of shows an industry that most of us understand, and most of us have a good understanding of what the driving factors might be. One of the issues within engineering departments is that they don't always have the correct information that they need to make decisions when it comes to designing new products. In this scenario, the designers assumed that the farmers, who are very hardworking, must be out in the field for many, many hours, and therefore they had to put a much larger fuel tank on board. The idea with the fuel tank being larger is it costs more money to install the tank, it obviously costs more money to run it, and it adds to the weight of the overall device. When they actually got some real-time information, they realized that their assumption was not correct, though. Farmers actually perhaps didn't do as much work as they thought or were more efficient, and in fact weren't even using the majority of the tank before filling up again. By having this having this information, they're able to make the decision to actually put a smaller tank on board as opposed to a larger tank. And by having a smaller tank, it did cost a little less to build the overall product. It actually added less weight on board, which meant that it was a little cheaper to operate. And it allowed them more flexibility by having more space underneath to put in other items on the tractor. So this definitely helped the decision by having the right information in the hands of the people that needed to make it, in this case, the engineers. The last slide I have for you is to talk about a very generic way of speaking, and that's to cut the wire. In many cases, cellular devices are used as a backup to an important landline. This could be the case of a public safety organization, a retail location for point of sale, or basically any company that requires internet connection to do their business. However, in many cases, it's used as a primary connection. This could be perhaps where landlines aren't feasible. Maybe it's a temporary location or a mobile one where landlines just aren't available. It could also be used in scenarios where the data is very low and it's much more cost feasible to use a modem than it is a fixed cost landline. The benefits include things like quicker setup time. It could be up in minutes as opposed to waiting for the cable company. The operating costs are usually lower and can be significantly lower. And even in some cases, the data speed available is much higher. So that's all we have today for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed the seminar, or the webinar in this case, and we look forward to having you for 301 when we go over some key applications that are also used out in the world.